said, sir, you have my word. So I got my first $1 million listing. In fact, I listed it for $1 million on the dot, I think. I'm pretty positive. So this is a story about being present and just showing up for work. Early in my career, I was literally coming out of bankruptcy at the beginning of 2010. And because of the crash of the market and everything, I had lost everything I had, and I was getting back into real estate and just doing everything I could to earn a buck. Working rentals, literally everything, open houses every day. I was just back to the grind. It's humbling, but at the same time, it was what I was accustomed to, and that was wake up every day, go to work, and just bust your butt, and hopefully good things will come. The hard part was the market wasn't cooperating. It was so bad. But I can't control that, and we can't control that. We can't control what the market's doing. Market's tough right now. The only thing we can control is going to work every day and working hard. The story about being present, I think, is a story that many people can take as, had I not done this, so many of these things wouldn't have occurred. And in real estate and in lending and a lot of businesses, like there's a byproduct to what has transpired because of something else. And this story it was Sunday morning, and this was in like 2011. I had called on Friday to ask a gentleman that worked at my brokerage if I could do an open house for one of his listings. It was a flip. At that time, a lot of bank owns were selling, and then people were fixing them up, buying houses for so cheap. And then, when you look at those prices now, it's just mind-boggling. But it was a nice remodel, and I wanted to sit it open and try to find more buyers. So on Saturday, I went to the home. I did like 5 hours of an open house. It was great. And then on Sunday, I went back. Now, the agent that had this listing was at my brokerage, as I had mentioned, but he didn't work weekends. That was just his thing. He didn't work weekends. And I always thought that was kind of funny for being in real estate, not working weekends, but to each their own. So that Sunday, I went and did the open house. And that afternoon, the owner of the home, the investor that had the property, went to the property and was just looking at things just to make sure, did they miss anything? Just kind of giving it a brush over, making sure that everything looked good because it had just hit the market. So he was a younger guy. He was a little bit older than me, but relatively the same age. And we started talking. And I was telling him about myself, and he was telling me about some of the projects that they have coming up, some of the things that they were doing. Really, really good dialogue and conversation. But what he liked was I was prepared. I brought a camera with me. At the time, you got to remember, the phone wasn't like a thing at that moment, nor was social media for the most part in terms of real estate stuff. But anyway, I was prepared. I had cookies, and like I would always do in my open houses, snacks. House looked good, smelled good. I had candles in there. Everything was. It was a really well set up open house, as they all should be. About 4 o'clock that afternoon, 4:30, I get a call because I gave the gentleman my information, and he called me early that evening, and he said, "There's a house that just came on the market. It's vacant, like most of them were. Could you get us into this house tonight?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I can get you in the house tonight. Of course I can get you in the house tonight." I said, "However, I don't want to feel like I'm stepping on your agent's toes." And he said, "Don't worry, it's not a problem. Greg doesn't work on the weekend anyway." I said, "Okay, no problem." So we went to this home. It's in a nice part of Scottsdale, and they ended up buying this property. Well, because they bought the property, I of course got the commissions on that. I gave them a little credit, but because I was present and I opened the door for them and I got them into the home, they gave me the ability to sell that house, and this is where the story really starts to take a domino effect. So it takes about 3 months to fix the property up, and I start holding this house open. And I held this house open every single day because I wanted to prove to them that I could be your agent in the future on other things. Well, as good fortune has it, the gentleman across the street from this house came over, and there's no BS to this. I must have did 40 some days in a row of an open house. And the gentleman's name was Tom Opatz. I'll never forget it because it was my first $1 million listing. And he comes to the house, he walks into the open house, and he was a wonderful man. And he came in, introduced himself, super pleasant, and we talked for several minutes, and he asked me, would I come over to his home tomorrow evening and talk about selling his house? And I said, oh, well, yeah, I would love to do that. He goes, I have never seen an agent work so hard at selling a home. You're the type of agent I want selling my house. I was like, damn. So the next night I went over there and we sit down at the table, and the home I was sitting and listing hadn't sold yet. But we sat at the table and he said, I want to pay you full commission, but I want the effort that you're putting in the house across the street in my home as well. I said, sir, you have my word. So I got my first $1 million listing. In fact, I listed it for $1 million on the dot, I think. I'm pretty positive. So we agree, get the listing paperwork signed, full commission, full 6%, 3.3, and I start listing his house like a week later. Well, on the 5th day, I get this call from a gentleman that had previously lived in that community. Him and his wife, they used to own that home. And I was like, whoa, that's bizarre. He goes, yeah, we have a friend that is interested in purchasing that house. I said, okay. And they ended up moving forward. So I got both sides. But the person actually called me, him and his wife. I ended up creating a good discussion with them, meeting them, because they had another home in McDowell Mountain Ranch that they wanted to sell. So I sold that home, and I sold that home for $750,000. They bought a home for $1.4, and then 2 years later, bought a home for $1.8 for me, and I also sold that one. Tom Opatz, who I sold his home and double-ended that house, bought a home in Pleasanton, California, who I referred an agent over to them. They sold it. I took a 30% referral fee for the referral, and then that agent referred me a $4 million buyer here in Scottsdale. And the person that was the initial investor that I had that initial listing on ended up buying probably $15 to $20 million of properties with me over the next 3 to 4 years. I tell that story because had I not showed up that Sunday, I would have never met him. And if I had never met him, none of this is possible. Because if I didn't go to that open house that day and be present, I don't get the phone call that evening to then have them buy that home, to flip that home so Tom next door can come over, and the entire domino effect that happened. The reality is that you never know. When you go to an open house or you go to an event or whatever the case is, there are days when no one's going to walk through that door. That doesn't mean it's a bad day. You can get a lot of work done still. But you never know who's going to walk through that door. And that person walking through that door can be a byproduct of an incredible amount of business. You never know. They could be a one-time client or they could be a monster client. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with that I may have only helped them once, but the people they've introduced me to and the people that those people have introduced me to, this is how you build your book of business, whether you're a loan officer or whether you're a real estate professional. The key is show up. Showing up is half the battle. Showing up and being present and being professional is what opens the door to opportunity. If you don't show up, there is no opportunity. So don't look at any day that you're going to work, because I can tell you, I've had my weekends where it's Sunday, it's 9 o'clock, and I'm like, man, I would just love to watch golf today and take it easy. I deserve a break. It's Sunday. You don't deserve a break. It's not Sunday. It's Sunday. It's game day. It's the day that people go looking for houses. It's Saturday. It's the day the most people are out and about looking at real estate. There are no days off on the weekend if you want to be uber successful. Every now and then, if you need a break, so be it. But you got to be your best judge on, am I taking too many breaks? The weekends are the time to show up to work, because the lazy take the weekends off. I mean, I haven't sold a house, I think, in 7 years in the field. I still work weekends. And I work weekends because most don't, and I'm getting that edge. But I also work weekends, most importantly, because that's my time to breathe, to spend 5-6 hours on a Saturday to where no one's around. I get organized in my thought. I prep for my next week, which is super important. And I get so many things done in that time. It's like going on a plane. Being on a plane for 4 or 5 hours, that is such a great time period to get things done because there are no distractions. I look at Saturdays or Sundays the same way. It's just about showing up. If you show up, great things will happen.